Thank you so much for taking the time. Yep. Thank you so much for taking the time to learn about the automation, especially in today's world. Like everybody knows that technology is evolving very fast. As we speak, there's like new things that are getting invented, and we need to be on top of that to be not left out. So we all know like 2 decades ago, like just being an accountant just meant like you need to know how to do the math, or being an assistant only meant all you needed was a notepad and a pen. But in today's world, like everybody needs to know like Excel, Microsoft Word, like Office, learn how to write emails. Very similar to that. In just a few years, knowing how to do robotic process automation will also become like a very primary skill that we all would have on our resumes, regardless of like what our jobs are or what industry that you work in. This would become a very household name, just like having an Alexa or like a Google Assistant in your house. So right now we even have like kids that are so young that just go through a lot of programs and they can build these automations as well. And it's a pretty nice topic, and I'm really glad that you've taken the time. And this time I can definitely assure you it's an investment in yourself, because upskilling right now in today's world is so important. It doesn't matter like which technology or what's your major or what you're studying, but knowing how to do automations is like the future. Because like right now we have like recruiters asking questions like, are you ready to work with a robot? And that's becoming like a primary conversation, that like how are people comfortable with the technology. So in today's session you will learn a lot about like how to build these like simple automations even for your day-to-day task. Okay, so we'll go ahead with a simple quiz. Trace, do you want to start off?
Cannot get off unmute fast enough. Yes. All right. So if you'll go to Menti.com, you should see that the first item. If everyone could go, make sure that you're on mute. So for this very first item, you should see a cloud. I want you guys, so if you're not clear on what automation is, it's just as simple as something on the computer that mimics what you do, whether it be that keystroke that you make, the mouse click, or something as intense as artificial intelligence. Anywhere in between. Could be super simple or way more complicated. So when you think of automation, what word comes to mind? And there should be the ability to enter a word, enter that word, whatever pops into your mind first. And it should pop up on the screen with those results. It's working properly. I'll look along with you guys. I'm gonna log in myself and see what you guys see.
Yeah. And sometimes if you don't see the field, like just try to refresh. And I see that mine's just like dragging a lot.
I believe a lot of them are saying that it still shows a blank screen.
Nice. Of course, it would not work on the first one. See if I can refresh it and get it to work. And if not, we'll
Yep.
skip it and attempt
Okay.
it later
Yeah.
on. Yes. So
Yeah, we'll come back to this.
Refresh your screen again and again. So let's go ahead and you want to go on to the demo, Priya?
Yeah, let's go to the next part about what is RPA. So we all have like different thoughts about like what automation is, right? So feel free to use the chat. Maybe like you could just like type it on the chat, even though like we are having like minor technical difficulties here. So we will watch a quick video of what robotic process automation is. Okay. So Tracy, previous slide. Yeah, and there's a play button at the very bottom. I know it could be like quite tricky on this one. Tracy, I don't think like we can hear your computer audio though.
Let me, I don't hear the audio on either here locally. Well, that's a PowerPoint failure. I assume the audio worked before. Do you want to check the audio on yours, Priya?
Yeah, I could try. Let me do that. Okay, let me see. So Tracy, let me just try sharing, and like after this video, we'll come back to the Menti part.
All right, there you go.
I'm just hoping, guys, my audio is gonna work. Okay, fingers crossed.
Robotic process automation is disrupting the way that IT is consumed.
Hi Priya. I don't think they can hear.
Oh, sorry. All this time?
Sorry about
It
that.
was working.
It's a little bit muffled.
Oh, let me know. Let me. Okay, I've I've increased my audio here. Let's hope. Just let me know if it works this time, okay? Sorry about that.
Is there any way you can share your computer sound? You go in Zoom.
Yeah, I just did.
Okay, we can try again.
Okay.
It's still kind of muffled. Are you sure you're sharing computer sound? If you're sharing your computer sound, you can mute yourself and then it should work.
Okay, let me see.
I did initially hear it full audio.
How about now? Were you guys able to hear it this time?
No, we weren't able to hear it. Are you sure your computer is able to share sound?
Yeah, it says it's okay. Let me see. I think it shows my audio right here. Is there another setting that I need to do on Zoom?
Okay, so for sharing computer sound is when you actually click share screen. So when you click share screen, there should be a button in the bottom left corner that says share computer sound, and that's how you get it to share computer sound.
Okay.
It shouldn't be in the settings.
Let me do that one more time. This time it should work. Okay. Let's try it this time, okay? Fingers crossed.
Robotic process automation is disrupting the way that IT is
Can you guys hear?
Yep.
Good. Okay. Thank you so much.
consumed and leveraged around the world. It's solving the supply chain's last mile connectivity problem equivalent in IT. It removes the repetitive in workers' schedules and enables them to focus on the more meaningful aspects of their job. RPA helps unleash the value of artificial intelligence, and it enables machines to work according to business and IT requirements. Robotic process automation is accomplished with the help of software robots, which are not only faster, but also more accurate and efficient than human operators. At a basic level, RPA creates robots that can mimic human actions on a computer. To summarize, RPA can mimic human actions. RPA can non-invasively integrate with the IT environment. RPA can read and process data in a structured form. RPA is easy to implement and powerful to scale. RPA robots can perform actions 24/7 without breaks.
Okay. So as we just saw in the video, like RPA is just nothing but a technology that can help you like mimic the actions. So it's a software robot that truly like mimics like whatever that you do. You can open like 5 different applications, like for entering your time, to log into another system, download a report, email to another person. All these are like actions that you might be doing on a day-to-day basis. But to be able to automate that part and remove the mundane stuff out of your life and give that to a robot. So think of the robot as like your personal assistant that just does like everything that you do on your computer, but you will have to like be very specific on like what are the tasks that you want it to do. So you can have like n number of applications that can be like automated in a way that like you can get these reports, email it at a certain time so that like you don't have to sit there and wait for it to finish. So all it does is it gives you back some free time that you can use, because humans are still like super intelligent, because like you can use your capabilities to make some advanced like cognitive decisions, and you give the boring stuff to the robot so that the robot can actually finish the task. Okay. And what we are basically saying is that we are removing the robot out of the human and making humans more humans, so that like all the high value tasks can still be performed by the humans, and the robot can just do the boring stuff. So as you can see, here's an example of like the very basic actions that the RPA does. Is like you basically like type on your keyboard, like click, have a lot of mouse clicks, and reading from a computer screen. All of this could also be done by using this technology. Okay, and over to Tracy. Tracy, do you think it's working this time?
I can try for sure.
Okay.
Let's see.
Sorry about that, guys.
All right, are you guys able to see the screen? Hey,
Yes.
did that work? So I reset the word cloud page. If any of you want to make another attempt at going to this code and typing in what you think of automation, it seems to be working for at least a few people. And you can throw out the first word that comes to mind, up to 3 words. That has a second one now. So we'll give you 30 or 45 seconds to throw out, you know, whatever words you think of, good, bad, and different, and we can get what the audience, what the general sentiments are regarding automation. Mechatronics, I've never seen that one come up before. So overall, not so bad. Make life easier, efficiency, fast. So the more frequently it comes up, the more central it will be, the bigger it will be. So efficiency, automatic. So a lot of these are fairly positive. So those are all good things. We've sometimes when we talk, we get groups that are pretty scared. Cyberdyne Systems and Terminator, I've seen that come up numerous times. People are worried about losing their jobs. They're worried about, you know, just things taking over, not having work anymore, bad things. And a lot of times it's because of lack of knowledge. That the stats actually indicate that whenever a process gets automated, the group is happier in the end. Automation is here to take away the stuff that, if you really talked about it beforehand, you would very gladly and willingly give up. It's not the really cool stuff. It's not the stuff that's highly complicated. It's not the stuff that that requires human discussion and a lot of decision making. It's things like your timesheet, where nobody's jumping up and down to get that done every day, or, you know, expense reports. Nobody's, you know, really standing in line to accomplish that every day. So overall, this is pretty cool. A lot of really cool words out there, and they're pretty positive. So glad to be here. I'm glad you guys are pretty happy about automation, it looks like. All right, so I'm going to move past a few of these. All right, so, all right. Now, have you moved past, so we're skipping to the next interactive feature. You guys should be able to choose. We have a little competition going throughout. We have a few quiz questions, super easy to make sure that you guys are able to watch throughout. Should be really easy and simple question throughout. So the first question, once you pick your little icon, is what does RPA stand for? And I'm going to get that quiz started. So look at your phone and answer that. You have 30 seconds.
Guys, and looks like the fastest finger wins. So bring it on.
So correct answer is robotic process automation. And when you break that down, robotic just means something that mimics human action. So you guys are familiar with like the Roombas, all things are doing, those robots are mimicking human action in a vacuum. It's repeating what humans do there. Robots on a computer are just as simple as instructions for the keystrokes that you do, the mouse clicks that you do. They may be a complicated set of instructions that are a recipe for do this set of keystrokes in this set of circumstances and this set of mouse clicks with this other set of circumstances, and go to this website and type these keys, go to this other website, type those keys. But really what it boils down to is that just a more complicated recipe. So it's just mimicking your human actions process. These are all process based. It's just a recipe to do work. And then automation just means that the repeatable, you can set it. So that's it. Robotic process automation. So got a couple more. That's where it stands as of now. So make sure that you pay attention from here on out, and you can change where things stand. So what is RPA not? It is not some human-like entity. The reality is that we are not creating something that is human-like. What RPA is doing is making things that are, for sure right now, really the simplest of tasks. So the very, very small piece of what we do. If you look at all of the jobs these days that could be fully replaced by RPA, it is only 5%. Very, very, very few. So by no means is this here to replace human work. There is a piece of all of our jobs that we would gladly give up. So the paperwork, like we talked about before, the timesheets and the expense reports, that hopefully will go away someday, so we can spend time doing meaningful work with the rest. So making, being on the phone, talking with people, doing decision making, spending time with humans, the stuff that we need our human brain for. So the rest hopefully can be automated, so we can spend time doing important stuff. And you don't have to spend daily time creating that report or sending the spreadsheet somewhere, because there's not a whole lot of value in that. Logging onto the website every week to do the same thing, when hopefully you could give a set of instructions, and that repetitive work that doesn't provide a whole lot of value could go away. So it's not just a means to save cost either. RPA is about taking away something that you could give a simplistic set of instructions for. I like to say that, if I could write out a set of instructions for a 12-year-old and they could complete it for the first time, it could be complicated instructions, but they could do it start to finish. That often is a good candidate for RPA. So what are the benefits? So increased speed. So we talked about some of the more boring stuff related to RPA, but the first automation that I built helped hospice patients get the fastest bedside care possible. So the process that a human team every day was going through was super boring. They were going to a website that didn't refresh, and all day long they were refreshing again and again. Not the most meaningful job experience you can imagine. And the families of those hospice patients, when they had very little time left, would have done anything for that process to be faster for their family, and for them to get faster care and the best experience possible. So RPA was able to make that process faster, and to get those services to those patients faster. So speed was really important. Accuracy, once you give that set of instructions, that robot performs it that way pretty much every time. And if it doesn't, it can tell you about it. It can say, hey, I just failed, and let you know about it, which is something that the human teams typically could miss out on. People don't realize when they miss something at times. They're not aware of it. So they forget that, you don't have to worry about that. So increased compliance. Again, with robots, it's something that you can set. Humans make mistakes more often than a robot typically does. They take breaks, they go to the bathroom, they eat. Robots don't do those things. So you can set something, and because robots don't get bored, things like setting up, I've done processes setting up terminations for employees, which does not sound delightful. A robot doesn't care about that. It'll do it all day, every day. So when you have 200 of them at the end of a semester to go process in a system to cancel out accounts, the robot doesn't care. It'll sit and do that all day long, where that sounds like a horrible day to everybody else. So you don't have to worry about the concerns associated with that when someone's account gets missed. Don't have to so much worry about that. So reduced cost of execution. Robot costs, you pay the license, but you don't have to pay them to show up at work every day, and they work all of the hours in the week. And they don't take breaks or anything, so that the licensing costs, you pay that, and that's it. They don't know overtime or anything like that. So it's nice that once the automation is built, that can be used year after year, and then the human teams can be focused on supporting the automations. You guys can be focused on building things for it and doing much more interesting, meaningful stuff. And they scale well. So say you built the first piece of an automation, we want to do something cool and add to the process. You can do that. You can reuse those pieces. You can build upon it. You can add to the system. I could take something that was built as a local attended automation, which means that I have it here and I decide when I want to start it. I can make that scheduled. I can, do different things. I could add elements to it and upgrade it. I can decide that I want that on many computers and deal with it differently. So I can scale it and grow that in many different ways and reuse that. And it's low code in general. It's not difficult to learn automation. I don't even have to have a degree to learn any of this. And in fact, it's only limited by you. You can go out and get all of the training completely for free. So it's really, I know I went out and learned everything on my own. It was only limited by how fast I wanted to go. So it's so new that really everybody becomes an expert rather quickly. So I thought it was a super, really fantastic benefit, and the community is very connected, so you can get help rather quickly. So all really cool benefits. So with UiPath, there are 3 major core components. Studio is kind of like your art studio, where it's low code, like I mentioned before. There's a lot of dragging and dropping and configuration of properties. So it's not a black screen where you're typing a lot of stuff, but dragging and dropping where it's visual and not nearly as complicated as some of the even other RPA tools. So not difficult to use. And you guys will see definitely a demonstration of that. Orchestrator, kind of like the composer in an orchestra, is what controls, manages, and monitors everything. Think of it like a giant brain that oversees everything. This actually checks on all of the robots to make sure that they are working as they should. In fact, the orchestrator checks on whether or not each of the robots has a heartbeat. It's actually called a heartbeat, checks every 6 seconds. So if a robot is scheduled to be working at that time and it's not, it will report that back. It's important if a robot's supposed to be running all day, like in the case of hospice patients, that was a 24-hour-a-day robot. Those referrals could happen all day long. It was important to know if it stopped so it could say, hey, this is not working, because that was a 24-hour team and all across the country and all of the time zones in the US. So orchestrator is that central place where everything is scheduled. It could run something. A lot of companies have things that run overnight, run first thing in the morning. It's important to know if something stops working, because you may have another process that may perform a certain set of procedures to fix it. Some companies have things that are infrastructure processes. Things may run depending on the output of another process. So it oversees all of that, captures things like the logs. It can queue up work, that type of thing. So the central place where really everything happens and you can monitor all of it. And then the robot itself, which is what performs that set of instructions that you designed before. Now, Studio does not have to be on the same machine as Orchestrator. These can all be in different places. Orchestrator can be in the cloud. It could be installed. You guys won't really have the experience of needing to install it in an enterprise environment. You guys will have the cloud experience, but the robot actually is what runs and performs the work whenever you've built something. All right, and now it's time for another question, so get ready. We'll start the quiz. Name one of 3 ways that human interactions can be automated with RPA. All right, if you answered keyboard input I'll look for some answers that are close, and I'll type those in behind the scenes that are pretty close, that aren't typed exactly that way. Give those credit. So I'm going to type those in now. See, is it keyboard inputs?
I think you could give that
So
keystrokes.
yeah, I'll get, it lets me type some others behind the scenes. So filling out information, I'll take as accurate. So mouse movements and clicks was another accurate answer. Reading the computer screen is a third. So data processing is accurate. Keystrokes is accurate. Let's see. Waiting for it to count those. See if it'll refresh behind the scenes there. So the primary three ways that we talked about were keyboard inputs, mouse movements, mouse clicks, and the
From the screen.
what was that?
Reading from the screen. Yeah.
Yeah, that. So yeah, we talked about the three primary: keyboard inputs, mouse clicks, and the data processing. So I don't know if it processed those. So if you guys didn't get credit, we'll manually calculate if there's anything close at the end. I'll take a screenshot.
Yeah, and guys, just remember, like, it's pretty much like all the other operations that you've mentioned, like scheduling system, call center operation, data processing, filling out forms, all that like kind of boils down to like you typing on your keyboard, clicking on your mouse, and reading from the computer screen. The only thing that this robot doesn't do is talk for you on behalf of you in a meeting. Except that it does pretty much like all the other mundane stuff for you.
Right. It all, when you think about the simplest actions, they really are just taps of the keyboard, clicks of the mouse. They're really simpler than all of that stuff. It's just a few taps. The robot's just performing simple stuff. It's just instructions to do really simple things. All right, so here is the leaderboard. Twix is in the lead.
I wonder if it's the Twix left or the right.
All right, so Priya, I'll stop the share over here.
Okay. Wait. We're about to get started for the installation. Like Tracy was mentioning earlier, we are going to access the orchestrator from the cloud, but the studio, you would have to install it on your desktop. Okay, so we are going to get that software on your machine and then like get this running. Do you guys want a quick break, or can we just continue with the installation?
I don't see anyone putting anything in chat, so I think we can keep on going.
Sweet. Okay.
And sometimes installation people have the occasional issue with it. So it may be that some people need a little bit more help than others and may need to, it might be a time for some people to take a break during that time while others have issues. So we'll find out. And for community edition, UiPath doesn't provide direct support. So it may be that you'll want to get help from us if you do have issues now versus trying to get help from them, which may not happen, at least officially. You can get help through Slack and you know, the community answers questions, but we're happy to help here.
So real quick, someone asked what devices the program will work on.
It
Typically
does work
Windows
on, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, typically Windows machines. I know that during the summer training session, someone asked about Linux. It does not install there directly. I'll look up Mac. Not sure on that one.
Yeah, they had a recent installation on Mac, but not many people are currently using Mac as of now. And we would recommend like using a Windows OS, at least for this session, if that's possible. Because we haven't had like many success stories like hearing like with Mac as of now. Tracy can verify that shortly.
I want to say that they give instructions, but it might be like through a virtual machine, a fairly complicated process that I've seen some write-up stuff on it. Yeah, dual boot, installing Windows and Mac together, like it's not for the faint of heart. I have a link, but it's not really a direct process.
Yeah, and it does not work on iPads. I can tell you that. I've tried that. Okay, so think of it like your Visual Studio code, right? Like when you're installing like Visual Studio itself, like at least now they've got this online. I'm not talking about like the recent years, but at least like a few years ago, they did not have anything. So all we had to do was like install it on our like computer and then work. So it's pretty much like a similar IDE. If you've used like Visual Studio, you would find it like very familiar, like when you've got this UiPath Studio on. So I would say like this is a portal, like this is an IDE where you're gonna like build your task and the automation. So for that, I would highly recommend like using on your computer for a better experience.
And for any of you that might have UiPath Studio already, you don't need to install Studio X. The ability to see Studio X, it's just an option and you can switch back and forth, but you don't install both at the same time. You just have one. So we can walk you through how to switch it.
Yeah. And
for
again,
organization, anything you want. Just answering the chat message. If you have an install, you can put anything you want on organization name. You can make up or put your name or whatever you want.
Yeah, and there's a question about like, so we can't download on Mac. You could try, but again, like it's 100% success that we've seen in the past. And Tracy's posted a link out here, so if you can look at it, there's a blog post on like how to use it on Mac.
It's really complicated. They talk through options for virtual machines, remote desktop virtualization, dual boot, but it's I don't own a Mac, so you're going to be there a long time.
Yeah, and for now, the process that we are going to walk through will also be on like Windows. And most of myself and Tracy are like consultants. We work with a lot of like different customers and companies. And most of our customers are like Microsoft shops. So they've got like all these Windows machines, like be it like on cloud or on-prem, like they always have like a Windows machines, which are like compatible with their enterprise systems. So that's why like it's recommended for you to learn it like easier on Windows, so that like when you transition into a new company or to a new job, you wouldn't find it like hard. Does that make sense? Okay. All right. And again, like feel free to ask questions about this installation or like how do we get this set up. outside of this MAC question. I think like we'll be able to help you out. And at the end of this workshop, we will share a couple of additional resources where you can like continue your learning path and also like ask questions, and like where you can find me and Tracy as well, so that like it's a lot easier to like, you've hopped onto this like automation journey. So if you want to like keep on this track, like it's a lot easier to stay on track with the community so that you don't feel alone. And again, believe me, like when we started like a few years ago, we did not have like a lot of these resources. We had to like hit our head and like find it ourselves, or like reach out to the support. And at least like now I feel like the community has grown stronger, and it's across the world. So even if you post a question on any of these forums or the portal, like there'll be people like across the world, right? So there'll be someone awake like at some time zone and will be able to like help you out. And these are people that don't work for UiPath. These are like users just like you and me. Okay. All right, let's get started. So I would ask every one of you on your browser, just go to cloud.uipath.com, and you all know that like IE is retired, so I'm not using IE. I'm a fan of like Chrome recently. If you like Edge, go ahead and try Edge. So just pull up like cloud.uipath.com. I'm just gonna paste it over here. A pretty simple URL. Okay. So just go in here and you would land in this screen, which basically like takes you to do like create your own account. Okay, if this is your first time, I would say like click sign up. Or if you have already signed up, like you could just, I'm just gonna click sign up for now, just for demonstration. Okay. So
if you do have a work account that restricts what you install, that type of thing, you want to use a different account than a work account that would be tied to like a UiPath Studio install elsewhere. For community, you definitely want your own personal type account.
Yeah, good catch. Yeah, because like with your work accounts, like your company might already purchase the enterprise version, and you might end up getting confused, like which version am I logged into, especially on the cloud portal. It gets like super confusing, because if your company is also on cloud, then you'll be like, you need to remember the organization names while you log in, so that like your studio can get connected.
And don't install both on a machine. Yeah. Do not. It only will cause you a nightmare.
So try and choose one of these options here, like whichever one that you have. And like Tracy said, for your learning purposes and for you to continue this like learning journey, it's highly recommended to use like your personal email for now, because like with the community, there's like two versions right now. So the community and the enterprise. The community comes out like it's open to all the public. Everybody can learn there for free. That's where like all the new features come out, and you can test out like anything that's new just coming out, and like you can actually like keep on learning even though your company might be like a little bit outdated, because like not all companies like hop onto the greatest and the latest features as soon as it comes out, right? Because they all have their like roadmaps and their transitional path on like how they get there. So for you to keep on track, and like also to keep on track with your learning, like you might go through the academy courses and everything, and if any new like product or anything comes in, you will use this same account across all the UiPath platforms. So we talked about like 3 basic products, right? The studio, the orchestrator, and the robot. In addition to that, they've introduced like a whole suite of products, which we are not going to talk about in this session. But if you're interested, you're definitely welcome to learn about it on your own pace. And we'll give you the links for the academy so that like you can continue learning. And those will be for like AI, or like processing a document, or like additional like business analysts, like what are the other products available for that. So there's a ton of products that's available. And for all of them, you would need like a very similar, like a single sign-on account. So that's why it's very important for you to sign in here, okay? So signing either using your Google account or your Microsoft, or you could use the LinkedIn. And sometimes like if you've got like an email that you just want to use this, okay? And it's very important for you to like, I'm going to use my Google account. So once you sign up, and then like it'll probably take you to this page. I'm just going to use my account. Okay. I've already got my profile up. So for the first time, it takes like less than like 5 minutes for it to load. So it's sorry about that. I've got like my existing profile up here with different windows. So I'm just going to log in here. Just a second. So once you choose it, you would probably like give an existing name. So since I signed up like for 2 different, I get this option. You wouldn't see this. Okay, so I just gave a name for my organization and I called it Priya. So you would end up in this landing page. So any trouble signing up so far? Just creating your account in the automation cloud? Yep, give a name for your organization. It could be like any name that you would like to give, okay? And if you would like to like keep things separated, I would recommend like adding a word like learning or like something with your name so that you know that you're using it for your like your own purposes and not for a company's organization's work, you know? Yeah, this was mainly intended for like people in an organization to like start learning, but later it opened up like for pretty much like everybody in the world. So like they probably will like get to that and change that to say like give your tenant name or something like that. So for now, like you own that company. So imagine you're the CEO. So give your own company a name. Anybody else having any troubles? Your audio is breaking out. Can you repeat that for me? Okay. Ellen, I guess like you're a little bit ahead of the step. So yeah, you can go ahead and choose the Studio X for now. Okay, so if you all have completed and you're on this landing page, someone had a question?
Sorry about that. I don't think anyone had a question. Just
Okay.
accidentally turned on their mic.
Okay. So once you're on this landing page, go ahead and click Download Studio. And it's a very simple installer that just takes like a few minutes to just download. And if you just double click, you can run through the installer. Okay. For folks who haven't installed Studio yet, please go to your main screen and right here you would see this Download Studio. Just get this installer and run it. And make sure you have admin rights on your machine. because if you're using a company laptop or so, it might have like certain restrictions. Okay. So whenever you have the studio up and running, like it will launch you to this page, which I'm trying to pull up. My machine's kind of dragging its feet right now. Just a second.
Cynthia, I'll private message with you that whatever issue you're having.
Okay, studio's finally pulling up. Okay, let's take a quick 5-minute break and then like we'll continue with the studio configuration. Okay, so we'll be back by 4:10. All right.
Okay,
Actually,
cool. So you guys,
5:10.
sorry. So you guys can take a quick 5-minute break. Just let it download. If you have slower Wi-Fi, don't worry about it. If you have any questions about it, you guys can leave it in chat. So yeah, just take a quick 5-minute break till 4:10, and then we'll get back started. You guys can stay in the Zoom meet.
And if there's anyone else that has Windows 7, you'll need a special link for installation for that. So message me if you have that scenario.
Okay, cool. So it's 5:10. So if Tracy or Priya, you guys want to get started, hopefully everyone has it installed.
Sweet. Thanks, Angela. Okay, so once you guys have the installation up, like you guys should end up on this screen. Like the moment that the studio launches, this should be the very first screen that you would see. So continue with clicking on sign in. And since you've already logged in here, it should probably like connect you. It would take you back to the orchestrator again. So choose your organization. And if you've got only one, that's totally fine. And then it would prompt the tenants here. So you may not have, if you don't have like any tenants like configured on your orchestrator, that is okay. So if you come to the home screen and if you don't have anything here, click under this orchestrator services and just click manage and just click add new tenant, and you're just going to give a tenant name. So the concept of tenants and everything will go, that's like a complete management topic. So for now, think of the tenants as like containers for your licenses. Okay. So we are just going to give it a name. So you can just give it like development or training or testing, any kind of name that you want to give to your tenant. You can choose that and just choose the basic default services that comes with it. And for the tenant region, you could choose Canada or United States, depending on like wherever you're located at. and then click on save. Okay. So this basically like creates a tenant like similar to this. And I've got my tenant name as exploration. All right. So that's what you would see on this screen. I've got 3 tenants on my orchestrator. That's why I see like 3 names here. So I'm going to go with the tenant that I know I'm going to use, which is the exploration. Okay. Once you hit continue, it's going to tell you whether it's got enough licenses or not. Okay. Once that goes through, then it will pop up on the screen. And for the very first time, your screen may not look like this bluish green one. You might see like a darker blue color. So if that is the case, go to the settings once the UiPath Studio is open, and just make sure that your user profile is connected. So you can go to the settings tab, and we are going to go to the license and profile, or like it might actually like prompt you the very first time. So if you land up on this screen, just choose Studio X here. Some of you have already asked this question and you've reached this step, which profile to choose. So choose Studio X. Okay.
And for those of you that start learning Studio X and feel like you want more, don't feel limited. Studio is the complete development environment. So if you feel like you want to learn more, take the Studio X feature off, and you feel free to go the full Studio route and learn as much as you want, or Studio Pro, either one. There's no restriction to any of the profiles. You can learn any of them that you want.
Exactly. So this is just basically like for pure developers, and this one is more intended likely for like business users and your day-to-day tasks. So here you build like tasks for your personal work, and also like you might like to share it with your team, or like share it across like a smaller group of people. And with Studio, it could be like a invoice processing or like payroll processing, like an entire process that a team would do. Like you could automate like more complex automations using the Studio. It's more like intended for a little bit of people that has a little bit of like coding experience, and it's definitely easy again, even though it looks like similar to Studio X. It's got the exact same drag and drop features. All you get is like additional like logic, and you can actually add like build complex automations using Studio. Okay, so for now, go ahead and choose Studio X, and you would land up on this screen. So we will be building our very first process. And before we even do that, like go ahead and like create a folder for today's exercises on your computer, so that like all the 5 exercises, you can store them on the same place. Okay. In my case, I'm just going to my C drive and I'm creating like projects, UiPath, Studio X. And like right there, that's where I'm going to have like all my exercises for tonight. Okay. And you're going to hit the blank task, and we are going to give it a name. So change the location. This is where you're going to change the location to the folder that you just selected. Okay, the default goes to your documents and UiPath, and as long as it's in the same location, you're totally fine. Okay, so go ahead and give it a name, and that's how we are going to build our first process. So I'm going to hand it over to Tracy. She'll walk you through the first process. But before we do that, is there anybody who's not there yet who cannot create a simple task? And if you're having troubles connecting your Studio to the orchestrator, just let us know. Like we'll definitely like help you. Yes, Alia. Oh, I feel the pain. I know there are days when my computer is slow as well. It took a while just to pull up Studio. Don't feel bad. It'll eventually come up. But when it comes up, you'll probably end up on this screen. Okay. So whenever it comes up, select the Studio X and make sure that you're connected using your profile. Okay. And if at any point in time you guys have like any questions, feel free to post on the chat, and we'll definitely like as we go through the presentation, like the demonstrations itself, we'll be answering the questions as well. Okay. All right. Over to Tracy.
And Priya, I may, my license is not connecting. I may have to get you to, if you don't mind,
Okay.
to share your screen. It's
Yeah,
for
sure.
whatever reason not working for me.
Okay. Yeah. You see, all our computers have bad days, so it's just normal, guys.
So one thing about the licensing is that it checks on your access every time you log in. So it makes sure that your password and your connection works every time. So for whatever reason, there's some hiccup, you will have an issue getting in that particular day. So for sure, you know, there may be a day that you may not be able to get in, and that does for sure happen on occasion. It will go to the web to check on that each and every time that you log in, for sure.
Yeah. So if you go to your orchestrator, and like we are going to refer to this automation cloud as orchestrator, and those terms are like interchangeable. So every time we say orchestrator, it's this portal that we are talking about, and they've got, you may not see like all the different options because I'm on a different plan. So that's why like you would see like different features here, and yours might say like community plan here, and it will give you like the number of robots and the services that you've got. And this is just like for informational sake only, but like by default, community comes with like a limited number of like robots that you can start learning with. So feel free to explore those and like try out the different features as well. But as of now, like let's go ahead and create a blank task. Okay. And I guess like the first one, we are going to do the generate password, right? Okay.
It should, for those of you without multiple machines connected to an enterprise account, it should be less of an issue for sure. It's the multiple machine environment, at least in my world, that seems to have more of an issue.
Yep. So I'm just going to change up my location if I can get this to the
So
right.
seeing a question about Google Cloud. So I think I did start out myself with a Google account. I found to have a bit of an issue with it, and I created my own intentional separate account for UiPath myself also. So I might recommend, if you're already starting to see issues with it, just to create a direct UiPath account instead of using just the Google account tied to it.
Okay.
So if that's what you're asking, if you're asking about whether or not that you can automate things in the Google Cloud, like with Google API keys, that type of thing, you for sure can. So that you can automate with just about any, third-party connection tool. About anything that I can think of, you can automate with UiPath. So I'm not sure if that was the question or not.
Yeah.
And then after selecting Studio X, you should be installed.
Okay, I guess she's on that profile page, right? So once you select Studio X, come here and click this blank task. Okay, and we're going to give it a name, which in this case, the exercise that we are going to do is called generate password. Okay, and I'm changing my location where I want to keep it. So just make sure that you've got that open as well. And
Choose any location. You want to make sure the path name is not super long. Just a Windows thing. Sometimes if the path name gets to be more than 250 characters or so, it will give you issues. So just make sure it's not like OneDrive and super duper long. So you can pretty much pick wherever you'd like. And it will start to create a folder that all of your files will go into for the process. So that's called your workspace.
Yep. And as you can see, it's creating all the files, right? So if you go to the location where the files are getting created, these will be the very basic ones that you can see. I'm trying to pull this up. It won't come up. It's too slow. Tracy, can you pass me that generate password URL? I've got this on this file, but my computer is also slow today and it's truly dragging its feet. The one moment when I want it to work.
The Teams link, that?
Yep.
There you go.
Right. You sent it to me on Teams?
In WhatsApp.
Oh, okay.
The Teams link. I sent you the Teams link in WhatsApp.
Okay. Yep. All right. So everybody's on this landing page, right? Got it. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to take you to a website where we are going to do like a simple capture of the password. All right. So I'm gonna go to this. I'm gonna pull up this browser here. Okay. And yeah, one thing that we also need to do is to make sure that we've got all the extensions that we need for the project. So before we do any kind of automations, we are going to be dealing with browsers and Excel files and all the different plugins, right? So anytime you get like Studio X or Studio installed, just make sure you've got the required tools for your automation. So to get there, so just go to your home ribbon right here, and we are going to go through like a couple of these extensions. So you're going to click on home and then click tools, and you would see the additional extensions that's needed. All right. So I've already got my Chrome extension installed. So just go ahead and install this Chrome extension. And also, like on your browser itself, it would enable a plugin. So you may want to close your current Chrome browser and reopen it again after you install this extension. All right. And if you're going to use like Edge for your automations, feel free to do that. And it's got like for Firefox as well. And especially for Excel, we normally would do this. Okay. And before we proceed any further, we are going to talk about the layout of Studio X itself. So as you can see, it's got like multiple different panes. So like I mentioned earlier, this is very similar to Visual Studio. So as you can see here, this area on the left side is the activities pane, where you're gonna find like activities which are like simple actions that you're gonna drag and drop that we can use to build our automations. Okay, and believe me, there's over like 300 plus activities, especially in like Studio. If you're building like complex automations, I think this is the best place to start. Okay, and this center area is the designer pane itself, which is where we will be like using our, imagine like a central canvas board where you're actually doing the painting. So this is where we are doing our automation. So this central area is where we design our automations. Okay, and on the far right hand side, you would see the properties pane. On this properties pane, which is where like each of these activities comes with like certain level of configurations. So you may need to specify, oh, for this activity, I need to pass this specific URL or like credentials, or set a timeout or set a delay. All those things, you would do that in the properties itself. All right. And we're going to be using like pretty much all three panes in most of our in pretty much all our automations. So you would like get familiar with it as we go. All right. So I'm going to paste a link on our chat here. I can get the chat open. So this simple exercise that we're going to do is, it's pretty funny. So you will see that. Okay, so this is a dummy website that like helps you generate like passwords. Okay, so and we use like pretty much, even though it says like not secure, don't worry, it's not like a malicious website or anything. All we are using like pretty much UiPath's like training websites. So for most of our exercises, we will be using a lot of these training websites. All right. So right now we are just going to go to this password generator, and all we're going to do is like click on like generate a new password, and we are just going to copy this password. Okay. You're just going to copy it from the clipboard. Sounds pretty simple and straightforward, right? You're ready to do that? Okay. So let's go here to your designer, which is a blank slate right now. Okay. And we are going to use an activity for the browser. Okay. So this is where like you might hit your first stumbling point, especially if you don't have the plugin and everything. We will find out. Okay. So I'm going to go to this activities pane, and right up here, you can see like a search pane right here, like a search bar. So that's where I'm going to look up that use browser. If I can get that working. So use application or browser, that's the activity that we want. Okay, so if you just type browser, this should be the very first one. And you can just either double click, or you can just drag it and drop it here. There are three ways that you could do this. The first one is the double click, or you just drag and drop, or you hit this plus, and then like a quick drop down comes in, and you can choose the activities from here. Okay, so make sure that you have this activity, and then make sure that you have this website open. Okay. And once you have this website, all I'm going to do is indicate this application to automate. So you see this blue hyperlink, right? So every time you see this exclamation, it means there's something wrong with the activity, that we haven't given it like enough parameters that it requires, or it's missing something that's clearly important for that activity. Okay, or the data type or the type of information that was provided doesn't match the activity itself. Okay, so right now it's just missing the what application am I supposed to be automating at. So we are going to click this indicate application, and since I've got this browser open, I'm just going to wait for it to highlight. And as you can see, I didn't do anything. I just clicked on the page and it does this blue highlight. Is everybody there with me? I'm just going to select. All I did was just click anywhere on that screen and it should pull up like what browser it was and the URL for that specific page. Okay. All right. Now we are going to click on generate the password itself. Anybody has any questions, please ask in the chat or raise your hand so that we know like we can help you out. Okay, so far so good. So we are going to go and click on the generate new password button. So for that, I'm going to look up the activity called click. Remember, there's like three basic like human interactions, either the keystrokes or the click or reading from the screen. Like we are going to do one such human interaction, which is the click. So I look up this action called like the click, and I'm just going to drop it inside this area. Okay, so we are going to do this action inside the browser. So that's why it's important to place this click activity inside the Chrome pack here, right here. Okay. And then I'm going to indicate the area where I want to click. So we've got this browser here. So as you can see, if you all have used like the F12 key on any of the websites, you would know that it would pull up the developer options, right? Or if you look at like the HTML of any other page, any other website, you would see like all its elements. So think of like the same logic for this one. UiPath uses that same kind of appreciation for these elements that you see on the website. It's identifying each of those elements separately. Okay, right now, all I want to do is click on this specific generate new password. So I'm going to select this. And if you wait like for a few more seconds, once you click on that, it will give you an option where you can choose what's the anchor. So you can say like, I want to click on this button that's next to this. So you're going to specify a specific nearby location, which is easier to identify the element that you want. Okay, so first I clicked on this, wait for like 2 seconds, then it would pull up the blue icon. Okay, so now I can choose anything as my anchor. My password's not going to be stable, so I'm not going to choose that. But this clipboard copy button is definitely going to be there. Okay, so I'm going to click on this one and then click confirm. Okay, and then it could have done the click new password. It will also give you an image of like what you're looking at. All right. Then all we need is to get the actual password, right? So you've actually generated the new password. Now all I need to do is like get this text. So I'm just gonna like get the specific text from here using an activity called as get text. So I'm just gonna look for an activity called as get text. So if you type text, it will pull up like all the text activities. It's right there on the fourth one. So just look for get text activity. Okay, and since this is happening inside the browser, I'm going to place it inside the Chrome. Okay, and again, I'm going to select like what's the password that I need to choose. Okay, and if you're selecting like, let's say there's always like room for mistakes to happen. I've always done this like in my first few automations, like even now, like it happens that like when you want to select something and you choose like something else, instead of the password, imagine I choose this, but like I don't want to choose it or the page is not ready. Like you can always hit like cancel or you can just hit like escape. Okay, which allows you to reselect. So I'm going to select this once again. And since like the page is not ready for some reason, I'm just going to hit like F2, which gives me like 5 seconds like timer for me to get this page ready. Or I can just like create like a new password. And this is the one that I want. Okay, so I'm just selecting the password right now. And again, if you wait like 2 seconds, like it has an anchor right now, which made it green, as you can see, because earlier it wasn't sure, like, can I truly get it? So you've got the password, but you need like a placeholder to hold it, right? You've got it like in the actual, like the clipboard, but now you need to save it to memory. So what you're going to do is you're going to create a variable. A variable is a placeholder where you're going to like save it for like using that value later. Okay, so I'm going to click on this plus button right here on this get text activity. If you see the save to, and you click this plus button, and you can choose this save for later use. So on your get text activity, hit this plus button, and then you would see this drop down. And right on this drop down, we're going to choose save for later use. Okay. And on this one, I could give a value for a name for my actual variable. Okay. In this case, I'm going to call it generated password, which is what we are getting, right? So I'm just going to give that name, and you've got that value here. All right. Now, if you've got it in memory, I need to write it out somewhere. So what we're going to do is like, we're just going to simply open. Okay. So you cannot select the password. Okay. So let's do this again. So if I choose this, and Alia, just let me know, like, if you can choose like other elements on screen, or is it just that like you cannot look at this password? Are your other items, like if I choose uppercase or lowercase, does it give you this green box around it?
A lot of times that's the framework, that it's a matter of choosing that framework differently, those F options. If you cycle through that, a lot of times you can,
Yeah.
See where it says UI framework default F4. If you press F4, see if you can choose the password. If you F4.
Yep. And if you hit F4, it'll show you like it's the automatic one, or is it choosing the UI automation or the default? And I went with the default one, so you could try choosing the different options like Tracy's mentioning. That's like a very good point, because sometimes the browsers can be finicky that it doesn't want to pick up the elements itself. So if you don't choose this specific word, like if you notice the first time, my password was like coming up as red. So what I did was I chose this password, wait for like 2 seconds, and then you select the anchor. You see, right now it's still red. So then the anchor that I'm going to choose is create a strong password. I'm assuming this label is not going to change every time I generate a password, right? Because the labels are static. So I'm going to choose this. And then you will see that this turns green, which means like, okay, now we've got like a solid password.
So there's not really one right answer necessarily regarding what the password's anchored to. It could be anything that is going to stay still on that page. So you could really pick anything. But there's not, when you're making something like this, there's not really one right answer. So it's okay if it's different than what somebody else picked, for sure.
Yep.
Exactly.
In this case, you can,
anything that stays still. So you could expect that something like the word symbols or create or that kind of recycle looking symbol, all of those would be the same place on the page, or even the green box. So hover your mouse, and anything that it can identify with could be an anchor.
Yep. So in this case, you could even choose this generate button as your anchor to say like, I want to choose like anything that's static, right? Like the password, the word password length is going to be static, but not the number itself. So don't choose the number. But outside of that, like she mentioned, you can choose uppercase, lowercase, or the numbers. All of these are static, or these buttons itself seem to be like static. They don't change. And you could choose any of these like non-changeable, non-varying values as your anchors. Okay. Sweet. Okay, now you've got the password. I'm gonna write this password to a notepad, okay? So we are gonna use this application to open up a notepad, all right? So I'm just gonna pull up a notepad for now. Not Notepad++, I just wanted the regular. Okay, for now, I just pulled up like a blank notepad because I'm gonna tell it where to go. And this is a pretty simple exercise, so we are going with just the basics, okay? So I'm gonna use this after. So if you don't wanna get confused, I would say like minimize this Chrome part, okay? You're done with like your browser. Now you're gonna get it to the notepad, okay? So after this Chrome part, I just clicked on this minimize. You can always do that. And then use another application right below it, okay? Use application or browser. And this time I'm gonna select the notepad. Okay, as soon as it pulls up. And again, like this could take like anywhere between like 2 to 5 seconds, depending on your computer speed, okay? So don't worry if it's slow, it's normal. It's just trying to identify the elements, okay? So you would see your notepad being identified, and then we're gonna type our password in there just to see if it got it right, okay? So I'm just gonna look for an activity called as type into inside the notepad activity, okay? And for the screen where we are gonna type, I'm gonna choose right inside this window. Okay, so as you can see, I'm just choosing not the entire window like of the notepad, but I'm only choosing like the text area, and it would be green. I don't need an anchor at this point because like it doesn't have a lot of UI elements there. Okay. And once you've got this, we need the value that needs to be typed, right? We saved our password into a variable, and we call that variable generated password. So we are going to call out that specific value right here. So if you hit on the plus, you would see the drop down with the use saved value, and you only saved one value as of now, which is the generated password. Okay, so I'm going to select that, and we are going to run it. Okay, so if we look at this, it's supposed to change the password. It's going to go generate a new password, and then come back and type it. And every time you see the studio running, you will see at the bottom end of your screen on your taskbar, you would see this green icon, which actually runs with a play button. That's just your robot actually doing the work. Okay. And like I mentioned, like if you've used Visual Studio in the past, you would be like familiar with all these different windows that they have. So you also get like an output window just to keep track of like if your automation fails, where did it fail? It could fail at like just like getting the text or like typing in this notepad. And it will tell you like what was the reason for the failure, and will give you a big pop-up whenever it fails. And don't worry if you've got like errors or anything. That's pretty common, okay? So it basically like generated a new password and it just typed it into the notepad. Any issues so far? Everybody's done with the first exercise?
And Priya, I did get my robot back up and running so I can do our second exercise.
You want to do the unicorn?
I can.
Sweet. Oh, for the notepad, I actually like opened like an empty notepad. Just leave it open. Basically just like pull up like a notepad. Okay. Oops. And then like you just like, when it has like indicate application, you just indicate that empty notepad. And then once you add the type into, you select the inside text area of the notepad. So you just had to like manually just pull it up for now.
So there are actually two primary ways to open up things with RPA. One is that way where you just provide the path. Another is with hotkeys, which is part of the free RPA training exercises. There's actually, I use this in Windows all the time. Anytime that you create a Windows shortcut, you can right click and go into properties, and like for Excel, I do Control-Alt-E. That way I don't have to go into the menu and click and find stuff. I can just press that and it opens up Excel all the time. And I do the same thing for PowerPoint and lots of different things. So I don't have to go find an icon anywhere. Well, you can specify that set of hotkeys the same way. There's a hotkey activity in UiPath. So the same exact way, you can just specify that set of hotkeys as opposed to finding that application path, which is just an alternate. That way, if you switch computers, it may not be that exact path, but you could specify that same set of hotkeys, and you don't have to worry about it being the exact same username. It makes it a little easier to port between one computer and another, that type of thing. So just an alternative.
Yep. And I'm just trying to see, like, does anyone else have issues? I see that like Alia's got a little bit, but I think it's not working because, okay. All right, I'll help Alia out, and Tracy, you could.
Okay. And for anyone that is lost, I believe these exercises are online in the Academy, aren't they? Or if not, I believe we could make them available. Is this first one in? Do you know that one's online? I know the second one is. The password generator, Priya. Do you know
yes.
the first exercise is online? We can make it available for reference so you guys can.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we'll probably send the material over to Angela or the other contact person that we were talking to. So,
right.
Yep.
Are you guys able to see Studio X? Or is it not showing? It's not giving me the outline on the screen. Is it showing properly or no?
Yep.
Okay. Yeah, for some reason, it's not doing the outline around. All right. Okay, so in this one, this is finding your unicorn name. So one of so we start with the main procedure, which is always your central point. You can have other procedures that it calls throughout, but this is where things always begin. And logging, you always want to do throughout, so you know what's happening throughout the procedure and can figure things out for testing purposes. And anytime there's any significant data, being moved in or out, it's always a good practice to log that. Of course, making sure to hide anything that's private. So you're, just always a good practice. You don't want to log anything that might have any, issues, any data that is personal. So just a good habit to get into anything like that. You don't want to have your data on your computer logged locally, and definitely get in the habit of anything that you might do professionally in the future logged. So good habit to start just as you're starting to build things, because you just don't want anything out there in the future that you forget about. So anytime that you start a procedure and anytime that you stop a procedure, you want to log that. Just get in the habit of doing it. So the first procedure, the first activity is logging just the start of the procedure. That's all this is just logging. This information is just the log level, which goes from trace, which just means like the most minor thing, to fatal, which means like super catastrophic. And it doesn't really do much of anything except change the color over here to jump out at you for your reference. So it doesn't do anything different in the system as far as, you know, what happens here, but it does essentially show differently in the logs. And you could have some kind of global handling procedure that maybe does, you know, responds differently depending on the level of error. So this is really just reference information for you. So this use Excel file can collapse together. So makes it really easy to see. If you completed everything within this, you could collapse it and move on to the next item, but everything in here is all related to Excel. So you know that that's called the scope of your procedure. Everything is happening related to Excel. So all of this stuff is related to this unicorn name Excel file. So I'm going to open that. It deals with the data within that file.
And yeah, Tracy, one quick thing really. I think this project was modified like even in Studio. So that's why I guess like you get to see the log message activity, because in Studio X, like you don't get the log message. So guys, if you cannot find the log message, so don't worry, it's okay. All right, you could use like the write line activity or the message box activity for you to keep track of it. Okay, so the write line is more like you doing like printf statements whenever you're coding. So it's just like leaving like breadcrumbs along your automation for you to know like which step you're at. Okay, so it's okay if you don't have the log message, you could use the write line activity.
So that should be an equivalent. So you have the same where you'll get an output there on this line. And by the way, so creating this procedure in Studio X, we can upgrade it to Studio. We talked about going back and forth between the two. So I can convert to Studio the one way, but you can't go back and forth, just for your reference. So I didn't want you guys to think that they were forever interchangeable, because they're not.
That's
so
right.
I didn't want you guys to think, oh, I can go create it and go back and forth between the two, because they're definitely not interchangeable. I don't want you to complete a process and think you can go open it up back and forth in the other one. It can go the one direction. So I'll delete that. We use Studio every day. We don't use this nearly as often.
So guys, like think of it like wearing, think of it like wearing these different hats, right? So like I mentioned earlier on this course, Studio X is mainly intended for like business users, people that are on the business side that don't code every day, but they would like some of their day-to-day tasks to be automated. So for them, this is like a quick, handy tool for Studio X. But Studio itself is like for like professional developers who can like truly code and build all those complex logic. So you can imagine like an accountant talking to a developer saying like, hey, can you build me this specific logic? Can you help me out? But you can give a developer's code like a different automation that the developer has built to a accountant and say like, go figure it out. So that's what Tracy was trying to explain. So building an automation on Studio X and opening it in Studio is possible. But if you build an automation, if you're wearing the developer's hat and you try to now play the role of like a business user, then you won't be able to open it up. Anything that was built in Studio X. So there is no
Correct.
like way back from Studio to Studio X, only from X to the Studio.
Correct. So I'm going to delete this log message activity. I did want you guys to know that you can change the display name of any of these, although the activity itself is named here, right line. I could name these whatever I want. And it is good practice to rename them something differently and uniquely. I would not leave these each in the default name. I wouldn't even leave them named log message. I would rename each of the activities in a unique way. So I would name this something like log unicorn start, something along those lines. So it's good practice to have a unique name for each of the activities that are meaningful. You don't want just a bunch of default junk in there. You always want something for each of these that explains what you did. Not that I would go into anything extensive on the logging activities for sure, but for something that is not really apparent, leave a little note. So if someone comes behind you, there's an explanation as to what you did, you know, especially calculations, you know, what's happening there, why you're doing that, and so on. All right, on the Excel file, this one is reading data. There's 2 fields, so I put my name in here. It is going to produce a unicorn name for us. That's the objective of this one, is to create a unicorn name based on an input of our name. So you want an Excel file and your name. And then it's saved here in a file called unicorn name Excel file that it references directly in this main.
Yep, you guys can build a simple Excel file in the folder where you have created your project and name it like similar to like what she has, but just give your name. And at the end of this exercise, we would love to see your unicorn names on the chat. So please feel free to post it there.
All right. So this will use Internet Explorer. In this case, it's going to pull up the RPA samples website again, which is what UiPath provides, and the unicorn name activity, which is what they've built. So it doesn't actually use this field, the what month is your birthday, but we're programming it to type out what we've got in that Excel file, to type out the name here, and we want it to create that unicorn name based on what we've got written into this activity. So this activity, that type into, is what it will be completing. And I'm gonna make this a little bit bigger for you guys. So by the way, this drop down, you can type in whatever value you want. It doesn't have to be limited to just what's there. I know some of those are limiting. So notice here, you can pick anything here. I could type in there. Or pick the fields directly in Excel. Although it takes quite a while to pull that up. So just picking the field directly because of needing to put the brackets and exclamation points and so on is usually the easiest way to get the cells, everything listed correctly with the proper format. So picking that and then clicking confirm is usually the easiest way to go about that. And then if I'm going to repeat several cells, then I'll often copy that. So I don't have to repeat that because it's a little slow. If I know that, say I'm going to use A2 and A3, I know what the cells are, I might copy and paste it thereafter and change the cell if I know they're very similar. So on the input, the difference between text and secure text is just whether it's straight text or whether you're getting information that might be stored in a secure format. So secure text would be their credentials, maybe stored in Credential Manager, which is a tool in Windows that stores passwords. Something like that would be an instance where you might be taking something out of that and typing that. Of course, you want to be very careful with that. You want to be careful about handling anything secure. Wouldn't recommend doing that with passwords, but those would be that would be the only instance, something along those lines of wanting to type out secure text. So you guys wouldn't have the real occasion to do that very often in Excel. Obviously, you wouldn't want to be typing out passwords, so it should be very rare that you would have the need to actually use that. Timeout, you guys will see, and when you hover over each of the fields, obviously you can see that there's a pop-up. It tells you what the default is. When you're testing, and a lot of times you can change the settings. If you go into the settings here, you can change the defaults of some of these things. It's a really long time to wait 30 seconds for something to fail for every one of these fields. So when you're testing, you may decide that, I don't want to wait 30 seconds for every single field. So feel free to change those settings to something that's shorter. I know I do, to 5 or 10 seconds. So when I'm testing, that it's not nearly such a long delay, that is 30 seconds. So things can move about more quickly. And I know if something fails a lot faster than that. So change things to whatever you prefer. It does not have to remain the default. All right, so to remind you guys where we're at, we're within the Excel file. It goes to this browser. It types in this browser URL. It types this value from A2, which was my name. And within the website, so just to repeat the process that it's going to perform manually. It's going to click get name. It's going to get the text from B2 in Excel, and then we'll have our unicorn name. That's it. So we'll press the run project button and it'll perform those steps. Well, when I close Excel, it will probably fail this time. We'll see, which it did. So I'll show you guys. Because I have Excel open, it failed, as it should have. So I'll close it. So now that, there it is, cheerful raindrop mist. So for you guys that are running these and are testing especially, you may end up with multiple processes in the background. Excel especially, RPA is somewhat infamous for having hung Excel processes or hung Word processes in the background. So make sure you regularly check whether or not you might have numerous Excels open. That's a really, really common cause of failures for sure. So I'm going to make sure that I don't. But if you do get pop-ups like that, it's quite possible it's because you've got Excel open or Word open in the background. So that is a pretty common thing in the RPA world. And whenever you're building an automation, a proper step in this process would be to close, the first step would be to close any open Excel processes first. In a production environment, we would do that first and check for that before moving forward. I actually have one open in the background right now. Any questions on that? Really straightforward process. I'm going to close this file and run it through again. And again, we'll give you guys the link to walk through this and recreate it yourself. There it is. This time it ran through without any Excel error because the Excel file was closed. So because these aren't, the most applicable to your life, once you feel confident enough that you might be able to do something that is useful to you. So I created a couple of things and then I automated logging into a website and pulling my kids' grades because their website was so painful to have to log in every day and look at all their different classes, and had their login, their website for their school email me that information every day. Once you feel confident enough to do something that's helpful in your life, do that, because you'll learn so much more than you will from these types of exercises. So, nothing's stopping doing something super helpful in your life. So those are the most meaningful exercises by far. So encourage you to learn until the point that you find something applicable. So as you're doing things, start to think about, what simple tasks or, something very simple that you can automate. All right, is now a good time for another break before we look at the next exercise? Can I scroll through? Sure. Let me make it a little bit smaller maybe so you can see more.
Recording in progress.
And if anyone wants to take a break, I'm happy to scroll through for others while some others go on break also. And we'll provide this content to everyone. Someone messaged me to scroll through. All right, so 6:17, 5-minute break.
Yep. And for folks who have completed, yeah, feel free to post like what was your final output, like what was your unicorn name that you got. And we've got like someone with a studio installation fail. So for them, I would say like, Stella, please go ahead and like reinstall your studio. And that's the only way that we can get this installation working. Oh, so if you've got like a file open, like if you've got like an Excel file or something that's open, you may want to close it and then redo the installation.
It's probably the MSI or the EXE. It's probably open twice. Or something like that, or hung in the background. I'd reboot. Easiest way to know that it's not open, and try something like that, or some weird temp file.
Yep. And thanks for attending, Fatma Jadum. Okay, hope you guys are back from the break. So let's go ahead and Tracy's gonna like pull up another fun exercise. Let's just make sure our technology supports our intention. So let's see. So one cool thing about like working for companies, especially in automation, is that like especially with the customers, they all look at you like either as a threat or as like a really like a technical person when you say like you're building robots. And the best part about our jobs is that like we get to give cool names to our robots. One of the things that you could do is like, since you already installed Studio, you would have gotten the assistant where you get to give your name. Okay. At my very first client where I was at, and I get to give names for my development robots, I called it Optimus Prime. So I want to see your creative side if you were to give a name to your robot.
So
over
at the
to you, Tracy.
company that I was at, they called their, at first it was bot 1 and bot 2, and then they realized like they really didn't want their companies they worked with to know about that. So it was Rosie Perez and Rosie Anderson for some reason. So there were a lot of cool animation that related to that.
So pick up your phone once again, and if you are on the same page as the mentee.com, you get to give a name for your robot. So get creative and let's start building a cloud here, very similar to our automation cloud that we had earlier on. So go ahead and like give out like any robot names that you would like.
You don't have to commit. It's not like your, first child or anything. You can change your mind for sure. That my client the first time had Agatha was what they went with at first, and they changed it. Oh.
Yep. And especially like with our customers who are like most of our customers, especially in the finance area, are like afraid about robots because like one time an accounting person actually saw me in the elevator and he said like, she's the robot girl. So I was like, it was pretty hilarious. But to break the ice, I think like one activity that I did was like I gave him the opportunity to name our robot that we were building, because people are scared thinking like, oh, she's gonna take away my job, like she's the one that's building it. But that's not the case. Once they see the potential of this and they see like how beneficial, it's not like anything that's going to replace you. It's like basically your assistant. And I love this Jarvis idea because like someone's an Iron Man here.
And Elon Musk fans.
Yeah. Yep. We had like Wally and a lot of pretty cool names. There were a lot of like Terminator fans in our clients. So that was pretty cool. Oh, there goes Wally. Oh. Alia, it's okay if your assistant is broken. Like just go to this Menti and like you can still give your robot a name. Yeah, sometimes like assistant can be like a little bit finicky. So just don't worry.
So it is the same thing that was causing my license to have issues earlier. So it has an attitude at times, like a teenager here. So gets all of us. So sometimes signing out and signing back in can work. Sometimes refreshing is fine. Rebooting sometimes does the trick. So if for some reason the word cloud is not working for you, feel free to throw a name in the chat. totally fine.
Okay, that's some pretty cool robots that we've got there. Yep, we can go to the next one, Tracy.
All right, so this is where you'll really want to pay attention, because there's nothing as frustrating as wanting to complete an activity and getting, most of the way there and having one little thing that does not work, or it tends to be where you get nearly all of it, and it's just one tiny thing that you hit the wall on, where if you got past that, you'd be done. And so it's super frustrating. So I know for me, my path to becoming an MVP was just helping people on the forums. The way people helped me when I had the occasional question, it was just being out on Slack, answering things on occasion, really, because I was super excited about being able to help people do something meaningful, and to not have to do stuff that wasn't, and waste their time just doing junk work. So these are really important resources. We talked about the Academy before. RPA is really new. The stats out there say that over the course of the next 10 years, that the high-end technical skills will require an increase of resources of 91%. I get contacted on LinkedIn pretty much every day. So if you want to pretty much guarantee a place in the job market, throw RPA, solid RPA skills out on your resume. It's, there's a certification process. So the stuff is free. The toolkit is free. There really is not a limit other than what you place on yourself. I mean, what better opportunity could you have when everything is handed to you and there's a whole forum of people and a community willing to help you? You really just have to have the tenacity to go out there and be willing to try, and the interest. But everybody can benefit, whether you're technical or not, at least on the Studio X side, from learning to automate some of the junk stuff. Nobody wants to, commit to manually pulling the stuff every week. Everybody could benefit to saving a little time, no matter whether you're in a technical role or not. So just whether you're a project manager or in HR or in marketing or whatever, you don't have to waste your time doing stuff manually every week just because. So learn a little something for yourself, even if it's just personally. This first stuff I automated was completely personal, for sure. So there's no sense in wasting your time and not having more personal time for yourself to, spend time on your favorite charity or spend more time with your family and friends. So why not? So if you guys, go ahead, please.
Just one thing that I will add to Tracy's comment is just like she said, when we all started, we all had this what is this automation kind of question, and it was a little bit of skeptical, where do I start, how do I even get to a certain path? But now the Academy itself has evolved into such a place where you can take courses by the titles that you want. So if you're in college and you want to become an RPA solution architect, There's a series of courses that you can go through, and it's all for free. Like, I haven't seen like another product that has opened up so much to say like, come learn my product and make it better. But this has the potential where you can like easily, very quickly like get a job. Like I mentioned at the very beginning, this like Excel, Outlook, knowing Microsoft Office was a skill earlier. Now knowing RPA is going to be the new skill that you need. And it doesn't matter what your job is going to be. Like Tracy was explaining, be it HR or an accountant or like any kind of job, even in IT, because IT folks like do a lot of stuff. And it's really like overwhelming when you get like heads down and like you get swamped with so much work. You need to look out for additional help, right? And most of our companies are like short staffed and they don't want to pay for additional people. So you've got to invent something to help them and to help yourself. And believe it or not, like Tracy just already said, like she was saying, like she did all this personal stuff. Even for me, like my very first automation, like the very first things that I was trying out outside of the exercises was to download pictures from iCloud. And then like after you learn like this UiPath and like you know how to automate things, then I'll tell you, you can become a little bit on the lazy side. Now I don't want to do a bunch of clicks. I'll just like pull up Studio and I'll just write a code. And I'm like, okay, I'm done. I actually helped my husband like find his job. He was having a hard time like going through the job portal, like listing up. I was like, give me like 30 minutes. I'll give you like your job, your functional areas jobs. And I gave it to him. So after that, like he was pretty impressed. So it's like, it definitely like gives you that personal satisfaction for yourself that like you can just do things like for your own personal self, not just for the job, right? And that's what like got us to this path of MVPs. Like in the early on days, it was so hard like finding that help. For me, like forum was my biggest support. This forum, I'll tell you guys, this is like one of the vibrant communities. Now it's got like thousands of users. Early on, when we started, it was about like 95 people on there, but then like it increased like exponentially. And I'll tell you, like when we started, like it was like a lot of frustration, like you don't know how things work, like how to get this running, but you're not the only one with that frustration. Somebody else across the globe has the same kind of problem, and they can actually help you out. So just don't be shy. Feel free to search or even ask that question. One of us will be able to respond. Okay. Go ahead, Tracy.
And there's not always the greatest documentation for all areas. That there are some insufficiencies here and there, I must say. So it is so nice to be able to put a message out there and people respond. And there most of the time that I look for something, there's a question out there the vast majority of the time. So I tend to use, to throw something out on Slack more often than the forum. If there's an obscure error where I get something crazy, I'll go look for that. But if there's something quick and I'm stuck, I may just ask something on Slack. So it is really nice for sure. So definitely don't be shy. So if you go out to the academy, there's so much information out here. There's lots and lots of stuff. And like Priya mentioned, you can look out here by the type of role that you're looking for. I remember sitting at a client and having started just started to take academy courses 2 or 3 months ago, and they were saying our RPA expert, and I'm thinking like, what kind of expert? I like 2 or 3 months, really? But it's so new. Everyone seems to be an expert after such a short time. I've had people just dabble on the side and take the certification, after a few weeks, after taking these courses over, several months, but really study for several weeks and pass it. So it's not like the furthest thing if you really put your mind to it, if you're really wanting to go after it. So definitely worthwhile to go out here and explore and look for whatever you want. But they definitely make a path for you of what you should go through first, where there's a pathway. It's good training. It's well done. It's a nice back and forth between video and exercise. And you can take a hiatus like I did. I would do a little, then say, oh, I've had enough of these unicorns and Excels. I'm going to go download my phone records from T-Mobile and have better time with my timesheet because that is meaningful to me. And then I'd get stuck and like, oh, I got to go learn more unicorns in Excel. And I would. And so it was, that was what I needed to get through all of the course work, and I did. And you don't have to take everything. You can, start and stop, but to the point that I was certified, which is what I wanted to get done so I could prove to myself that I felt like I had enough knowledge to go to client work, which you could do, or you could, just get things for yourself. So it just depends on where you want to go with it. So there's lots and lots of information for you guys to, track your progress and go anywhere you want, for sure. So that is the
Tracy,
first. Yes.
Just one point that I wanted to add here. Like someone asked about like Studio on iPad, right? Just so you know, Academy works on your iPad or even your phone. So I've actually like taken a couple of courses when I'm commuting. Like back in the days before the pandemic, as I was going through the office, it takes like 2 hours to go to the office and then come back. So I actually was able to access if you have good internet. So you can use this on your iPad, your mobile, and it's at your own pace. There's nobody telling you like this date, if you don't complete, it's going to go away. So there are no certain like deadlines. It's what you give for yourself. So the basic thing, if you're a college student and if you're looking to get a career as a developer, that RPA Developer Foundation is the best place to start. It gives you like a basic awareness of like what these basic concepts within this studio are. And if you're going to be a business user, then like you can take the Citizen Developer course, which gives you like an idea of like the Studio X type of courses. And then like, as you can see, like she's pulled up like a couple of learning plans here. So after you finish that RPA developer, you can do this continuous learning plan. All these are like plans, which means like it has like 5 or 6 courses into it. So each course can take like 6 hours, 6 to 8 hours. So you just gotta like, don't just take the course for the sake of taking it, like not just like watching just the videos. I would say like practice those exercises. If you are like confident enough, like one thing that I did early on, like 5 years ago, I used to like time myself on each of these exercises and challenge myself if I can beat that time. So that's how like you can actually like practice better and like do these like any kind of automation within Studio or Studio X like faster. And also like you get to know all the properties and all these activities and how to use them. So this academy was like the basic foundation of where we all started. And again, like whenever you join a company or like a different organization, you can always share your diplomas with them because that's going to be your proof. And whenever you take the certification, it's valid for a year. And right now you take your certification through a Pearson view, just like any other Microsoft certification that you would do. And you can look up the options on like how to pay or if your university pays for it. And you can always like look up these options. And Tracy can talk more on this like right now. Like we are even like actually UiPath actually like got this academic alliance program for college students where they actually create a specific degree type of course. It's a 6-month course where they could get certified as RPA certified professional. And she's even in the works of like getting this introduced for like high school students, because we want like RPA to be democratized to like pretty much all the students, because like if this is the future, then we want the students to know about this early on. You don't want to be in surprise once you graduate, then you realize, I should have known about this in college. So it's pretty good start, guys. You guys are in the right place. Again, don't ever feel shy to ask any questions. This forums is the best place to start.
So that is where coursework is. The forum has really all of these links here together in one place. So this is really the best place to start and has everything. So this is where you can put out really any questions about everything. There's lots of different links here, all kinds of categories, and you will probably find it asked here. I mean, just about everything. If you're looking for more, well, it hasn't logged in yet. I've got it over here. I keep it in another tool, Franz, see if it'll let me drag it over. So there's a Slack channel as well, uipathcommunity.slack.com, where if you have questions and are looking for more chat, there's an academy channel here where, you know, hey, I had a quick question about, you know, my issue on exercise 1. People ask things all the time, and a lot of times they'll get, you know, you can have a back and forth. Job postings are out here as well, announcements, you know, technical questions, that type of thing. So it's nice to come out here and get a quick answer. So that even another option where it's more immediate than just a forum post sometimes. So lots and lots of different ways to get your questions answered. So there's no sense in, you know, doing anything, hitting the wall and just being frustrated. And then, so even another place to come and get additional, they have lots and lots of links to hook you into the community. They want everybody to have access to lots of things. So if you get into Insider Preview, gives you early access to some of the releases. That's another way to get into things. If you find that you want to hear about some of the products, it's an even additional way. I think that the way that they would love you to get into things is to probably hit the community. That gives you links to the forum and so on. That's probably the proper way. And then components, this is, think of it like add-ins, like in Google or Internet Explorer. These are options that you can add in, or things that other people have built or third parties. So I can look for things, say I want to connect to Salesforce or SharePoint or Outlook. A lot of times someone has built something or they got a cool tool that already does something. So I could go build something myself, or I could do a quick search and I could look and see, hey, has somebody already built something? And they may have something that already exists and there's no real sense in me building it. If somebody's already built one, I can look and see if it already meets my needs, may or may not. So it gives me other options. And some are officially supported by the publisher. You'll see that type of thing here. And some are just something somebody built already in their basement and they made it freely available to others and told you about it. So something to read more about. You can click on each of these things and learn more about them and hook them into your tool. So it'll tell you about the details here. And it's just free information available. In some cases, I think some of them may be paid or you have to, subscribe to something. So not 100% of it is completely free when you look into the details, but the information is out here. So you don't always have to reinvent the wheel in each case. So just more information, and then you download each piece there. Some of them, a lot of the times they're XAML files that you would put into your own tool. And all these links will be they're in the presentation that we just made available. That's it, I believe. I don't know that we would have time to go through anything else. Questions? Anything we can answer for anyone?
Okay, one thing that I would just say is like the best way to learn is by learning from others' experience as well. because you're not going to run into just like all the problems by yourself. So just look up on forums, like if you get to like a point where you think like you've learned RPA enough, that's where like you start like help answering like other people's questions on the forum, because like that's how like I learned, and that's how like Tracy learned as well. We started like helping out like as a certain group of people, and like we started like getting more interest. Like eventually that's how it became my passion, and then you start like getting more and more interested into it, because not every day that I use like API calls or like chatbots or like AI, but there are people that are implementing projects on that, and like if they get stuck, like you could like read through their posts and like learn from that, or even like basic like academy type of questions, you can help answer that. And we've been doing this for like quite some time, and this is outside of our day jobs. So like we both have our day jobs, like implementing automations, delivering trainings, helping our customers set up like center of excellences, giving advisories and everything. On top of that, we take interest in like knowing that like the community also needs us, and just like giving back to the community itself. So that's what got us to be like most valuable professionals for like 2 years in a row. I'm glad to share that like with Tracy, like we became in 2020 and in 2021, which is like which is truly like a great honor for us, because being recognized for something that you're passionate about is not something that happens every day. Because I've been in this IT industry for like 10 years, and doing like a Microsoft shop, like Stack Overflow and everything, you get like truly like impressed by those, right? But this UiPath community has been like truly amazing to work with. And eventually, if you guys like start up and like continue learning, you will become an MVP too. So I'll be happy to see one of y'all out there.
Thank you so much for the help and everything. This was really interesting. Even though I messed up a bit, but thank you.
No worries. We'll share the code later on to the organizers. So take a look at it and just run through it. And whatever steps that you missed or like you may have like skipped, that's okay. Just run through it and try to practice again. Okay.
All right, so that's all from Priya and Tracy. I'll just take over and I'll close real quick. So thank you again so much for taking the time, a full 3 hours, a great workshop for the beginner, and you helped walk us all through that. So thank you very much. And just for everyone who's still here, thank you so much for sticking with us. I hope you've learned something, and we'll make sure that we share everything that gets passed along to us. So just to remind you guys, in around 10 minutes, we have another workshop with Lauren. She's an MLH top 50 hacker, and she'll be going over how to come up with a hackathon idea. So with that, I'm just going to close off. And thank you so much for everyone who attended today. Thank you so much. Bye, guys.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.